You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Oh, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Whoa, it is. Whoa, mercy, time for hemp. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to ask you to share this video with your friends and hit the like button if you wouldn't mind. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. This is Time for Hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. And on this program, we are focused on all the amazing things that this wonderful plant known as cannabis hemp can do and how valuable it is to the whole world around us. Do make it a point to visit timeforhemp.news and check out our archives. One of the first things you'll see on our homepage is this groovy book that you should pick up at Amazon, and it's written by my joint host, Al Byrne. Hey, Al, happy Hemp Day.
Yeah, Hemp Day and April Fool's Day. But let me assure the audience, we're not fooling around here.
That's right.
Yeah, this is serious crap that we deal every day, and this is one of those moments that you better pay attention because we're old, the three of us that do this, Casper, Al, and Al, and we're old and we're ornery, and but we do know what the hell we're doing, you know. So yeah, so pay attention. And then go ahead.
I want to remind people that anytime you happen to hear the word joint, like joint hosts on the big broadcast, we ask that you fire up your bowls, your vaporizers, your joints, and take time for hemp. I didn't mean to interrupt, Al, but I want to make sure people know that that is part of the program. And as part of the program, too, is sharing information about your amazing book. Why don't you let people know how to get a hold of it before you bring on our other joint host?
Okay, 2 assignments. Yeah, I have a book. See it there? It's for country and cannabis. The country part is my service in the Navy for 24 years. See, I have if you don't know, this emblem here is what the Navy calls a CB, which is it's a B and it's carrying a machine gun and a wrench and an oil can. And the B part stands for battalion and the C is construction. So construction battalions that work in combat zones. And so that was part of my Navy career. I did that. I love that work because we built things, regardless of what you think your military does. We did a hell of a lot of good work in the 3 years I was with these guys. We built airfields, we built ports, we built oil fields, we built all kinds of things, all for the benefit of our country and probably the world. And they did it right. There was no ecological screwing around with the Navy. They were very, very clean in what we did. So anyway, that's it. And then part of the whole book involves my experience with the military and cannabis, how the military dealt with the cannabis issue during the 60s and 70s, Vietnam, all that stuff. I was in then. I'm a Vietnam vet. And then the last half of the book is basically the 40 years or so now that I continue to work in to make medical cannabis a reality. How it started, why it started, who did it, when they did it. It's a history lesson. I did it for the history because a lot of guys said to me, Al, if you don't write this thing, nobody can. Get it down before you're dead. So I did that. Also wanted to let people know by the book, it's 360 pages. It's a real book. That there were a lot of people involved in this issue, which probably none of you have ever heard of. But if you're going to be a serious hempster, if you're going to do what our guest is going to recommend, you really should know the history of the issue, the people who did what, the people that stayed, that got in the way. There's a lot of that too. So yeah, get the book. It's anywhere. It's Amazon. It's Barnes and Noble. It's Apple Books. It's wherever books are sold. So
you didn't tell people the name of it, Al.
I did. It's right there. It says for country and cannabis. See right there. There it is.
Oh yeah, but that's for people who are watching the video. But some people are just listening. Let them know.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I apologize to all those people. For country and cannabis.
Absolutely. I want to make sure they get a copy out because it is a fantastic book, and I love your work.
Thank you, sir. So the secondary reason for the book was education, because in that book I tried to put in all those pages stories, if you will, about people that were using cannabis successfully for lung cancer, for Crohn's disease, for spasticity problems, multiple sclerosis, cancer, successfully using this herb, and how they did it and why they did it and what happened to them and all that stuff. And it's all real. I didn't make it up. And then the education. I left it there for education. Even if you think you know what you're doing, you probably don't. Read the book. I only make $3 out of it. It's not a big deal for me financially, but it's a big deal for me if I can continue to keep teaching people about this wonderful plant. And that's really the whole subject matter of tonight's interview. We have a nice lady with us from Canada, and she has years of experience in cannabis education, something that I think I pioneered. And so I am so glad to see somebody coming along that is going to take that mantle, that baton, and do some really good work with it. And I've never met this lady, but she comes highly recommended by everybody I ever talked to. So with that, I'm going to introduce our other Canadian. He's also a token Canadian. And being that Casper and I are both in the U.S., and I'm going to let the Canadians introduce the Canadians. So if you will, Al Graham, folks.
G'day, guys. How you doing?
Hello, and I want to remind people that Al Graham is also another joint host.
That's right, exactly.
He's also
I don't smoke joints in my house, but I do have some cannabis.
You keep this up, half the audience won't live to go with us on this thing. Slow down.
Well, I'll tell you guys, just so you know, we're in Canada, but we are the last week we've been in Iceland for a while. For those who don't know, yeah, we went through an ice storm here, and there's been a lot of damage done, hydro lines down, trees down. A lot of damage, and yeah.
And also for those who don't know, Al Graham has a broadcasting network called Pace Radio Network. Why don't you tell them about Pace Radio, Al?
Yeah, Pace Radio Network. We have psychedelic as well as cannabis educational programming. We have a show that's returning briefly. We will be returning back to full time, and we will be broadcasting almost 2 shows a day by the time we're done. Almost. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All psychedelics, cannabis stuff. It's interviews. There's news. There's it's all educational, right? So.
And how do people find it?
PaceRadio.net. People advocating cannabis education. That's what PACE stands for.
Fantastic.
And if you're educating people about cannabis, you are involved. You are people advocating cannabis education, or a person, right?
Well, I know you're lucky to have a huge government support system up in Canada of people who are eager to let the whole public know about how wonderful medical cannabis is. Am I right?
Well, yeah. there's been hey, I'm happy that we have a program, and it's helped a lot of people, and especially children, because the children's dealing with seizures and stuff like that. They couldn't just walk into a recreational store. A parent can't do that, or a child can't do that. They need to have, access to medical cannabis.
Well, let's talk to the lady that will teach us all about why that should all happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll bring in our guest, Shawna Dunbar. She's a certified medical cannabis educator. She's the founder and the executive director of EducaNation Cannabis Education, Inc. And she's also a hempcrete enthusiast. And I'm going to really enjoy this conversation, and I'm sure everybody here will as well. I'd like to say welcome to Time for Hemp, Shawna.
Thank you, guys, so much for inviting me, for having me here. I'm honored to be amongst all this history. You guys have been educating in cannabis for a lot longer than I have. So
it's been a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we all experience something with cannabis as a benefit, and we find out that we can't shut up. We have to keep telling people. We learn more, and we just keep spreading it and keep talking all the time.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what happened to me.
Well, when Jack Hare first told me about cannabis hemp, after you learn it, it's like somebody telling you the truth, and you just got to tell the whole world, and it turns you on fire. And really, because of what Al Graham said, I haven't been able to shut up when I hear somebody talk about how marijuana is bad for you, cannabis will destroy you, hemp needs to be. I just perk right up and go, excuse me? I don't think so. Now, one of the things that really struck me about your bio is that you are a professional cannabis educator. Is there a university that you attended? I want to know. I want to sign up for that. How did that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, when I first got started, there weren't any courses in Canada to take. And so my story with my son is what led me to want to deepen my education and my knowledge, because I had, our story of success got passed around and people started knocking on my door for help. And I thought, well, who the hell am I? I'm not a doctor. I'm not, how can I want to help these people like I help my son, but I needed some sort of certification. So I found Green Flower in the US. At the time, I'm trying to think what year it was that I took that program, somewhere in the range of 2014 to 2015, 16, somewhere around there. I don't remember. But it was the only course that I could find of its kind. And I have to say that it was very thorough. I learned a lot. It covered all the bases. It gave me a certification. I know that they went on to sell that program. It's now available in different universities in the US. It was really a great program, and I thought we need to get that here in Canada. I also took a course with Dustin Sulak, so he had several certification courses, so I took those as well. And then finally, I found a certification course that was offered through the School of Naturopathy here in Quebec, Canada. Wasn't a great course, to be honest. I didn't really learn anything, but I was grateful to see that cannabis education was starting to come to Canada. So I took that course. So that's where I have my basic certifications from. And that's kind of where the idea of EducaNation started, with just wanting to have something equivalent or maybe even better here in Canada, so that Canadians could get their certification. We do not have government recognition at this point. So I liked your little crack there earlier to Al. We certainly have our medical system that's been in place since 2001, and then recreational legalization came in 2018, which I think kind of muddied the waters for medical patients, to be honest. I think it's gotten worse rather than better, but at least those systems are in place. However, the education isn't. We often hear, whether you're talking to producers or you're talking to the government or any organization that's involved in the cannabis industry, everybody says, oh, education is so important. but nobody's doing it. Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. We hear all this kind of like harm reduction stuff, and we're still clinging to the drugs are bad. This is, you remember those Nancy Reagan commercials?
I do.
Drugs. Yeah.
And it sounds like you and Al Byrne have quite a bit in common. Al Byrne, I'll even tell you about it, but Al Byrne had a website where you could go and get medical certification for some of the programs that he had. And he pioneered the medical cannabis education here in this country, didn't you, Al?
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to ask you that, if you had ever heard of the Medical Cannabis Institute.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, well, I helped create that.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, the way that went is that we had been, patients at a time had been doing these conferences, and they were very successful. They were accredited. So we were bringing in, doctors, RNs, PhDs, anybody that needed continuing education. We were sponsored by both the American Medical Association and the American Nurses Association. So we had it covered. And so it went well. And I got to about the second or third of one of these things, and I said, I'm patting myself on the back. Man, you just had 350 professionals in here. And then I thought, yeah, I had them. 2 years from now, I'm going to have some more. You're saying who's doing the education, and that's exactly what I came to. And I said, I got to get this. I got to get this out to more people. So what we did then, through some volunteers, great guys, Herb Duggan, Roger Grant, we started creating a visual history of these accredited conferences. We got the visual history accredited. And then I went to this company in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I was living. And just coincidentally, bringing up my alma mater, the CEO of the company was from Notre Dame. And there I was. I had a buddy, and she was the boss. And so I went to her and I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we take these videos, which included Dr. Shulkin. No, not Shulkin. What would you say?
Sulak?
Dennis, huh?
Was it Dustin Sulak? Is that the name?
Dustin Sulak. Thank you. I don't know where my brain went. I had the other guy was one of my tenants once. Excuse me, folks. But anyway, we got the company, which is now, you can look it up. You can still take these cannabis courses online, accredited, and it's the Medical Cannabis Institute. So that was what, he was talking about. And what you're trying to do, I'm really behind you. If I could help you somehow to get your work recognized as professional education. That's what happened to me. It's a story. Read my book. It's in there. But once I got that accreditation, the world of medical therapeutic education in the United States actually changed dramatically. And then we started getting attendees to these conferences from England, from Brazil, from Japan, from Canada. And boom, they went back out there and said, whoa, this stuff works. So you're doing really good. So now you've got this basic knowledge. Have you got some sort of a core curriculum that that you brief with, or?
Yeah, so I'll explain to you. I think that you said it well. Like you created this education, people started coming and taking it, and then bringing that education out there in the world. And it's something that we recognized at EducaNation was there's not much point in reinventing the wheel. The cannabis industry is sort of like exploding worldwide, and there's new courses that are popping up all over the place. And there are some of them that are, like, I'm sure like yours, are very high quality. So why should we create another course and then compete with you? Why don't we come together, bring all of these, credible educational courses, sort of under one umbrella, agree, have professionals like us review them, agree on them. So that's what our association is all about. So we are the only association in Canada of certified educators, and what we are certified cannabis educators, I should say. And what we're aiming to do is to become the governing body, like we have our medical colleges, naturopathic colleges, these types of organizations that are holding their professionals accountable, that are, setting those standards for practice. So that's what EducaNation is hoping to officially be recognized as in Canada, is the Association of Certified Cannabis Educators. So we're setting the bar, and our aim is to get our government to recognize us as a profession, because currently the only cannabis educators that are really recognized as cannabis educators are bud tenders. And they're in the recreational space. They're not allowed to speak to medical cannabis. When grandma comes in and says, my knee really hurts and I don't sleep well at night, can you help me out? The bud tender says, I'm really sorry, I can't speak to that. Those are medical conditions. I can't help you. And then either they give grandma bad advice and she goes home and she bad trips and doesn't want to come back. She's not a repeat customer, or she doesn't get something that works at all. What we need the government here to do is to recognize that educators of our level that are educating to the medical benefits of cannabis are what are needed. We need to have like one of our educators in each one of our dispensaries. So when those medical patients come in and ask for advice, they're not just being turned away. Someone is there who is capable of answering them, who's able to take on that liability, because, we've done the accreditation courses. It's been established that we have a certain level of knowledge that we can, impart on those consumers. But we're not at that point. We don't have that government recognition. I mean, I can tell you a story when I first got started. I was looking for professional liability insurance. I still do work in a family practice where I educate the patients that my doctors want to prescribe cannabis to. So I educate them and I follow them along. And I needed professional liability insurance. So I called this and that company and this, and everybody said, no, what? A cannabis educator? A what? What are you?
Yeah.
What is that? And then I eventually got sent to the Association of Insurers, and I literally got laughed at on the phone when I said I'm a certified medical cannabis educator, and they just laughed at me and they were like, yeah, whatever. So it's that level of recognition that we need to establish for educators. And I think the best way to do it is to come together.
Well, let me just say, first of all, I am impressed. You being from Canada, you have managed to harness and understand and manage the English language really well. So for you being a foreigner, I'm really impressed. But here in America, we say education, not EducaNation, and I know you people in Canada. So I'm just helping you up with your translation here. It's education. EducaNation.
Education, cannabis across our nation. So EducaNation, that's how it
is. That like a website that people can go to? EducaNation. Is that how you say it in Canada?
EducaNation.info is our website. And we are in the process.
He thinks he's the only cool guy around with these slogans and stuff. No. A little history. In the United States, I started with the same problem that you've just discussed. Needed a way around it. Our government then and now still hostile, so they were not an option. I just said, well. What happened at the time I was married to one? We got the RNs of the United States interested. And I'll tell you what, once they heard what we had to say about patients and the herb, it wasn't a hard sell. It really wasn't. Just so you understand, and so if you want to look at this approach in Canada, or maybe you already have, we'll talk about it. but I certainly would lean that way, especially now because you've got the American Nurses Association has twice put out a demand, if you will, that if you're a nurse in America, in the United States of America, and you have to be an expert in medical cannabis applications. You have to be. It's not, otherwise you can't be a nurse, for Christ's sake. Yeah. And then on top of that, just last fall, this would be 24. The American Nurses Association approved a RN specialty for exactly what you're talking about. So the protocols down here are there for you to use, and I can't imagine that the Canadian Nurses Association wouldn't pay attention to your. Well, go ahead.
I think that I am personally seeing more nurses becoming interested in cannabis, learning how to prescribe it, learning how to guide their patients. We're also seeing a push for pharmacists to become educated in cannabis. And I'm a little nervous about that one, but I think one of our biggest issues is our medical colleges are still so much against cannabis. They're like I see here in Quebec, there is such a push away from natural medicine. Right now, we have several naturopaths who are being taken to court by our medical college because they are practicing medicine without a license. I've worked with doctors who have taken their retirement because of the push from the medical college to, you're allowed to prescribe pharmaceuticals. That's your job. That's all you're supposed to be doing. Don't talk to your patients about health. So I think, and what I hear echoed, across from the other provinces is that it's a lot of the same thing. The medical colleges our medical colleges are per province, not Canadian wide. It's governed provincially, not federally. And there's a huge push over the last few years for, I don't know, it's like this medical control, people aren't allowed to make their own decisions. There's not a lot of support for any type of alternative therapy. It's allopathy only. I meet a lot of patients that have lost their doctors because they're trying to advocate for themselves to consume cannabis. And the doctors just say like, well, I don't know anything about it, or I don't believe in it, or I don't have time for this. That's another issue that we deal with is, our professionals in the medical industry they've got 5 to 15 minutes with a patient. That is nowhere near enough time to explain what is the cannabis plant, how, you have an endocannabinoid system. How does the plant interact with that? Where are you going to purchase your stuff? How are you going to pay for it? All of these things are just sort of out of the scope of our regular practitioners' capacity. That's why I work in the position that I do in the family practice that I do, because my doctors are just like, more than us. You work with our patients, you guide us, you guide them, everything will be okay, because they just don't have the time for it,
That's great that you work with
that. And I understand that Al Graham can also attest to this. He's had this same problem, but over the last 5 or 10 years, I put together literally a few thousand videos on YouTube, and about 300 or 400 have been taken down by YouTube because I've had a doctor or a practitioner or a nurse talking about how they utilize cannabis for medicinal purposes. And even Al Graham anymore, when he starts his show, he does this little happy ass disclaimer about medical cannabis is just, for fun and blah, blah, blah. And
put a disclaimer on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sad because even the silliest things like cinnamon and garlic, it's amazing what they can do health wise. But even if you talk about cinnamon and garlic being good for your health, your videos will be banned.
Yeah.
That's giving medical advice, But listening to you just explain what's going on and what you've had to deal with, that's like a time warp thing. to me, it was like, this lady's 20 years behind me, you know. I'm like, oh,
and you're
my.
watching her go through same thing that you went through.
I'm not sympathetic. I'm empathetic.
Would it help, Shawna, if the federal government actually recognized cannabis as a medical benefit instead of not recognizing it?
I think so. I mean, we talk a lot about that, right? Getting cannabis a DIN number.
Yeah.
That, I mean, there's been a huge change since I started back in 2014. I mean, we've got now, at least there's a handful of insurance companies that are starting to cover cannabis as a medicine. Our federal government allows us as patients to use our expenses on our income tax as a medical expense if we don't have private insurance that covers it. So, I mean, it's not much. Like the patients that I work with, they'll tell me their insurance, oh, my insurance covers it, $500 for the year. And you're like,
well, see, and what boggles my mind is I've learned over the past 2 years that the Canadian government's all happy about TV ads that show suicide pods. And if you're depressed and want to kill yourself, hey, we'll help make that happen. Sure. But, I'm thinking, why don't you just smoke a joint, bitch, and get over it? It'll cheer your happy ass up. You won't want to, right?
Yeah, it's true. I won't even share the most recent personal story that I have on that, but medical assistance in dying has become like the new antidepressant or something, It's being offered to patients, I think, completely unethically. And in often cases, it's just because their quality of life has gone down and, the pharmaceuticals don't work. And
if you smoked a joint, you wouldn't want to kill yourself.
Yeah, instead of just saying, okay, well, look, we've exhausted everything that we've got to offer you to help you. Why don't you go over this route? Maybe you should try cannabis, or maybe you should go try light therapy or natural
or psychedelics.
Or I mean, there's millions of healing modalities out there, but I think it's, our current medical system is like this. It's allopathy and allopathy only, right?
Well, I'm just going to say this. That's outright medical advice. If you are sitting there at home and you feel like you're so depressed, you want to kill yourself, fire up, bitches, and get over it. So why don't you tell us now what it was that drug your sweet soul into the marijuana movement and made you decide to stand up and make yourself a public target for people to go, oh my God, did you hear what she said out loud? She said medical cannabis is good.
Well, my story starts with my son. I mean, I can say that I've been consuming cannabis for 37 years. I started when I was 12. I smoked my first hash joint. That's all we had access to in Quebec back then. But I didn't really know about the medical benefits of cannabis, other than, maybe I heard that it was good for glaucoma, and I might have used that as an excuse for my consumption at some point as a teenager. But it wasn't really until my son, his epilepsy started when he was 3 years old. His first seizure lasted for more than 20 minutes. I had to resuscitate him 3 times. It was not a great day. And, thankfully both my kids were having a sleepover in my bed because my husband was away on a fishing trip. And my son had his first seizure while I was just crawling back into bed after having let the dog out. And I had taken all my life saving, used to be a lifeguard. And I was like, okay, as long as it doesn't last more than 5 minutes, we're okay. And then 5 minutes passed and I woke my daughter up. I said, go call 911, put the dog in the bathroom and then run next door and get your grandparents. And yeah, thankfully my son was next to me, because had he been in his own bed, I don't know what would have happened, but I resuscitated him 3 times before the ambulance arrived. I was told he was going to have brain damage and all of these things. He was perfectly fine. Once he woke up and came to, he was all right. But we went the pharmaceutical route. Like, we did what we were told. I had my son's my son's life in my hands. I was not ready in any shape or form to try some alternative medicine at that point. So we did the pharmaceutical route for, I guess it was when he was 7 that I really started thinking I need something else. Like these drugs, while they have lowered the intensity of the seizures that he was having, and they were not happening as frequently, they were still happening. And every time he would have one, his doctor would increase the amount of medication that he was taking. Wow. So by the time he was 7, he was taking the maximum dose of an 18-year-old.
Oh,
and
jeepers.
Yeah. And pharmaceuticals come with side effects. And side effects that I wasn't aware, it wasn't written on the list, but I found out from another neurologist, was his memory. It was affecting his memory. So it was like, he'd come home from school. Where's your lunchbox? Do you have homework? He was always like, I don't know. I don't remember. And I was, as a mom, like, I'm going to strangle him and throw him out the window. Why can't he remember anything? Only to find out that it was the medication. So I started researching alternatives. I looked at homeopathy. I looked at everything, every herb, and we don't use pharmaceuticals in my house, except for that one that he was taking for his epilepsy. And the only thing that I came across that seemed to make any sense and had, any substance to it was cannabis. But I couldn't find what cultivar was I supposed to be using. Is he smoking it? Is he taking it orally? How much is he taking? How often is he taking it? I just couldn't get to the bottom of, get the answers to these questions.
What year would this be at, approximately? Just to give us a time zone.
2013, 2014.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And I was introduced to Corey Yelland. She introduced me to a doctor in Europe and this person here and that person there. But still, I was not getting those specific bits of information that I wanted. And so I just kept researching. I wasn't putting my son on cannabis at that point until there was actually a shortage of his medication, his pharmaceutical, because it's a benzo. So it's highly restricted by the government. They only produce a certain amount, but the one that he was on was being prescribed more and more with the rise of epilepsy in kids, and kids that had the least amount of side effects. So suddenly there was a shortage, and that shortage ended up lasting 1.5 years. Was offered to us was, here's 3 more pharmaceuticals. One is going to cover the potentially deadly withdrawal symptoms from the medicine. And then the other 2 are maybe going to manage the epilepsy. And I looked at the list of side effects on these things, and I was just like, no, like, there's no way I am giving this to my son. One of them had a side effect of irreversible liver damage, which we're going to have to test for every 6 weeks, bring my son in for blood tests. And I'm only going to find out the fact that he's got liver damage and it's irreversible. No, thank you. And then this one is the number one side effect is suicide. Like, I want that for my, at this point, 9-year-old.
No.
Yeah. So I said no. And the pharmacist stood there crying. Actually, she said she's been begging, borrowing, and stealing my son's medication for the last 6 months because there was a shortage. Now she can't get any more. Thankfully, I was always a little bit ahead of the game. We always kept a month's worth of his pharmaceuticals just in case, because I was always worried, if I ended up somewhere and didn't have any, the withdrawal symptoms, it was just too dangerous. So I always had a month's worth of extra medication on hand. And I came home, counted the number of pills I had exactly enough if I started weaning him that night, which I did. I started, even though I had no alternative, I just started weaning him so that I wouldn't kill him from stopping it. And with 3 days, I was driving to Ontario, 14 hours of driving to go visit a friend of a friend who was a veteran who had his prescription for cannabis. There was no recreational legal market at the time. And he started saving what he didn't need for my son. And he supplied us for, I'm going to say, about 2.5 years until we eventually found a doctor who was willing to prescribe, because there weren't doctors prescribing to pediatrics at that point. We got our first prescription at this seedy little clinic in downtown Montreal. I went with my 9-year-old son in tote, and we get there and there's a lineup of gang members, all have the same, sleeve of tattoos, all have the same broken arm. They all had I think their left arms were all broken. They all walked out with a 30 gram a day script. We walked out with a 20 gram a day script. No paperwork, no guidance of what to use. The doctor had said, in the little closet on the screen that we met on, was like, good job, Mama Bear, just keep doing what you're doing, because I'd already been medicating him.
Wow.
And that was that. And we left, and I thought, what the hell? Like,
Yeah. Oh,
he
yeah.
needs to be better. Like, if I wasn't the cool mom who knew about cannabis and I was standing in that line with that kid, that would have been terrifying. With my son saying,
So why didn't you just go to the black market and buy it? I mean, goodness gracious, here in America, even though we've got a legitimate cannabis market, it's still cheaper to buy it on the black market than it is to go into a dispensary and pay all their overhead and taxes.
True enough.
Why didn't you just use the black market?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was nervous about that. Like, I want to know what's going into my son. I want to know that it's been tested somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So at least
she's a good girl. Come on, she's a good girl.
Well, if you felt that, why didn't you just start growing it?
I did.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
I got my son's prescription. The first thing I did was apply for my permit to grow, and I have been growing for him ever since, because I have control of what goes into that. I know it's organic. I know how I process it. All those good things. And I do encourage my patients to get their permits to grow as well, or those that are in provinces that can grow their 4 plants, do it.
So your son was put on cannabis and everything worked out well.
He's been 100% seizure free since he started cannabis. So that's over 10 years. He's over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. There's no doubt that it is our miracle. I love it.
You obviously got the right strain there.
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I've finding high CBD cultivars at the time was very difficult.
Yes.
Finding what I felt was what he needed was very difficult at the time. I just grew whatever I could get my hands on. As long as I had something that had high CBD in it, I would grow that. I never gave him only CBD. So he started off with a 1-to-1 blend, day and night. And then I found him to become a little hyperactive during the day. So I thought it might be the THC. So I toned the THC down during the day and kept the 1-to-1 at nighttime. And his seizures are only active in his sleep. It's a very rare type of epilepsy. So I don't have to worry about during the day. It's really just to keep that, the levels sort of on an even keel. And then at some point, I'll tell you, my son even he really learned how to, number one, work with his plants, give them some good energy, all of that exchange. He knows about growing, making his medicine, and self-medicating. So at some point I had noticed that he had slowed down, and I was like, oh, it's time for me to make some edibles for you, but the freezer still seems to be full of your edibles. What's going on here? Are you forgetting? And he said, no, I honestly don't feel like I need them during the day anymore. So I was like, that's fine. You're not having seizures, right?
Well, I don't usually do a free plug because, I figure if you're going to get an advertisement out of me, I want some money, honey. But there is a company up there in Canada called Crop King Seeds, Rocket Seeds. And I noticed that they used to be a sponsor of this show. And I love their website because you can go to their website and they tell you the strain, how much CBD that's to expect out of the plant, how much THC to expect out of the plant. So if people are looking for that type of information or are concerned about that type of quality control over their plant, I would recommend that they do check out Crop King Seeds.
And the whole seizure thing is not, we're not talking about an isolated incident here. No. Cannabis historically has been for centuries used as an antispasmodic. That word was actually used back in, I did some history back there, and back even in the 600 AD, anti-spasmodic. So this is not new knowledge. And what Shawna is saying, it's the same thing here in the U.S. I mean, think about what I said a few moments ago or a half an hour ago, whatever the hell it was. I said I got sponsored by the ANA, the American Nurses Association, and the American Medical Association to put on these conferences and accredit their MDs and RNs that this was real education. It was done correctly by the right people. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff to go through to get accredited. Anyway, the nurses, as I told you, have spoken up very publicly and even said, as I said, you got to be a nurse in America. You got to know what this stuff's all about and how to use it. The American Medical Association has still never said anything about medical cannabis. Now, I mean, I'm going back to 2000 when I started this stuff. 2000, long time ago. And so they gave me permission to teach this under their authority. They gave me the authority to do this, and I did it, and they approved it, and we did it again and again and again and again. But here's an organization that's approved the education, but publicly has never said anything, and that could be what you're up against in Canada. In my book, you guys read this book. Because one of the things we ran into Gitco, back where you are right now in Canada, was that we could walk up to a prominent physician or a head nurse or something and say, do you agree with us? Man, I'm on your team. Go. So how about make it public? How about wait a minute. Nope. I think so. Again, in the book, we had that same problem. And how we overcame it, I say again, was nurses. We went to the Virginia Nurses Association and made our case. And that organization, 7 women sitting in a room, board of directors said, yes, we agree with you completely. That if you're a nurse in Virginia, you know how to use this stuff as a medicine. And from there, it exploded in the nursing world. Exploded. So again, if you can get some already up and running medical organizations, some sort of therapeutic anything, and get them educated first is, I guess, what I'm saying. Don't waste your time on politicians. To me, that's just BS. Help anybody that's in the public, certainly. Give them all the information you can get, but concentrate on medical professionals that are going to be sympathetic to your goal. The other thing that I did in the past, and you can do in Canada very easily because they've already got a way in there, is the veterans. You were taken care of by a veteran. That's what veterans do. They take care of people they like. But the veterans in Canada, as I understand it, get their medicine, their cannabis medicine, from the Canadian government. Not only do they get it from the Canadian government, they get it delivered to their home by FedEx or UPS or something. So the issue of cannabis in Canada has already been resolved, from my point of view, with the veterans. They want, the veterans are going to tell you this. You heard it here first. A veteran considers nurses, firefighters, and police their brothers and sisters. Whether they say it out loud or not, they mean it. So if you start saying, well, wait a minute, how come these guys are the veterans? I think you should have this stuff. Thank you very much for giving it to them. What about the cops? What about the firefighters? What about these nurses? They get all stressed out. How about them? What's wrong with you people? We use that very, very successfully, and are still using it. We aren't done, but so I'm just trying to throw out ideas and show you that you're going in territory that's already been looked at. We did find solutions. Everything's got to be, but you need help. And I again say some sort of cannabis education into the professional medical establishment would be your best guess.
Yeah.
And Al's right, because I think help will soon be on the way. I want to talk about your website here right away, but Alter, I think help's on the way, because when Canada becomes our next state here in America, all your laws will change, right? And then you'll be able to get medic, right? So, but until then,
Hey, we just lost half our audience. Shut up.
okay. Until then, when we come to your website, what benefits do your website offer to people who are trying to deal with this?
Well, currently our website doesn't offer a whole lot other than some links out, but I will tell you that in the next few weeks, I have been working behind the scenes at revamping our website. And one of the things I'm really excited about is we have a page, or it will be published soon, the page with our educational resources. So we have free educational resources that are available
Nice.
on IMD Health, which is here in Canada. It's known as CloudMD in the US, though they are under a name change right now. But they are platforms that are used predominantly by healthcare providers to educate their patients. And we are their primary source of cannabis education. We've been on their site for 5 years now, which is great. So we're always creating new basic 101 modules that can be accessed by healthcare providers, by patients, by the public. Anyone can access them. We also have them published on Elion Med and on CanMar. They are free access, but you have to become a member of their organizations in order to access them. So those are some really exciting updates that are coming, that you'll actually be able to access those free resources directly on our website as well. And we've got other resources that are there for, like Canis Keys, you see there, that they're one of our partners, and I adore Canis Keys. Uwe Bleshing, his book, The Cannabis Health Index, was like the first cannabis book that I read from cover to cover, I think 3 times when I initially got it, like just sucking up all of that information. And he created the Canis Keys site, which I love because it's all peer reviewed. So all the latest cannabis research that's out there, I don't know how you guys see it, but I see it all the time. Doctors say, well, there's not enough research. You know,
All
research
the time.
on cannabis. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's like hundreds of new studies that come out on a daily basis. And Canis Keys reviews those studies, gives you a little synopsis on them, breaks it down by chemotype, by terpene, by cannabinoid, all of that. So for educators like myself that are working with patients, I want to be up to date on, you know, the latest research that is out there. That's a fantastic tool for that. And we're gonna have some other books and stuff. Maybe Al, we can help promote your book as well on our site. We would love to do that. So we'll keep in touch about that. But yeah, hopefully our new update that's coming soon will make all of these resources more available. We also have our memberships that we are transitioning onto our website platform. So we have our leadership membership, which is really for certified educators, cannabis educators. So they've gotten their certification elsewhere and they come to us for continued learning and business support. And then we have our community membership, which is designed for patients, caregivers, the Canna Curious, anybody who wants to learn about cannabis, wants to be a part of a supportive community, can join our community membership. And we will be launching our professional membership within the next year. We hope. We've been beta testing for a couple of years. So that's where we really want to see our leadership members, those who are certified, help them, get them out there educating, get them recognized as professionals, and so that we're all practicing in the same way. We're all using the same language, and, you know, helping break that stigma. I think when we're all on the same page, when we all speak to cannabis using the same language, we help break those barriers and normalize.
The language is exceptionally important, and saying the same thing. When we started pot, I made all the founders who were federal patients. They didn't exist in the world, right? But there they were. We formed a company out of them, and I told them, I said, if you're gonna work with me in this debate, you are only going to talk about medical cannabis. Excuse me, Casper. You're not going to talk about hemp. You're not going to talk about legalization, and that's it. So I applaud what your policy is there of staying with the subject. However, that leads me to my question. Exactly what is the cannabis subjects? I have an S on that you discuss. Is it growing plants? Is it how to use them? Is it how to eat them? Can you give me a little more on that?
All of it.
Oh, good. Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah. So we feel that, everybody should first of all know what the plant is, like learn a little bit of botany, know about the history of cannabis. Where does it come from? I mean, it has such a rich history. It's been the subject of so much controversy in so many different ways throughout the world. People need to know about that. I think that also, to me, when I'm teaching history, is a huge piece because it helps destigmatize. When people understand, wait, what a second, in Canada, it only became illegal in 1923. Yeah. Guess what? Everybody had it growing in their backyard before there. It was a part of everybody's simple cabinet with herbs. You had cannabis in there. It was the third most popular ingredient in medicine worldwide. These are things that help break stigma when we start teaching about those things. And then, wow, we have these endocannabinoid systems. That's like such an aha moment for people when they can understand that it's a plant that actually interacts with their body system that is responsible for homeostasis. That's a big thing. That's a big stigma breaker. What are all those different molecules that are in it? Why do they interact with us? How do they interact with us? I don't know. There's so many different things about cannabis. It's such a big, huge thing, but it is. If you learn about if you check out our modules on IMD Health, I'll send you guys a link. You'll see that it's all basic 101 stuff covering like, okay, what are cannabinoids? What are terpenes? All the basics that people really should know. It should be common sense. I think that we need to get to a place where when you go into elementary school and you start learning biology and you start learning about your body's systems, we should be teaching our kids about their endocannabinoid systems, right?
I agree.
Let me tell you a story on that one. So my grandson's up in New Hampshire. He plays hockey. He's a hockey player on a college team, and he's got a girlfriend. It's not a romance story. It's not a love story, and so but the girlfriend's studying up there to be a dietitian. It's a school heavy on nursing and all that. So I asked her, I said, hey, so what are you learning about the endocannabinoid system? She was a freshman. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Byrne. I thought so. And so then a couple of the guys on the hockey team with my grandson were seniors. The goalie was a senior. Another guy was a senior, and they were in pre-med or something. And I asked them, they're graduating now. Never heard of that, sir. I don't know what you're talking about. So I just want to emphasize what was said here. This endocannabinoid system is basic to life. Your life, your daughter's life, your dog's life, your chicken's life, the whale in the ocean, the American eagle, all those venomous snakes you don't like, all this stuff, with the exception, everything on Earth, think about it this way, whoever you're thinking, everything on Earth has an endocannabinoid system, except insects. And who the hell wants to be an insect? So you've got this wonderful system that is vital to every living creature on Earth. Everything you've ever eaten in your life had an endocannabinoid system, that you are, So, and that includes you, and like I said, everything. So if you don't know anything else, and so then I go back to the college, right? So I find this out. And I say, well, what the hell? Al, you wrote a book. Well, right. So I write the dean of the nursing school. Yeah, I think it was nursing school. So I wrote the dean of the nursing school. I said, you know, I'm not a nurse and I don't know shit, but I wrote this book, and there's this thing called the endocannabinoid system. And I really can't imagine how you put nurses out. This thing was discovered, by the way, folks, by a medical doctor, a researcher at the University of Indiana in 1988. Her name was Ann Howlett. She works at Wake Forest now, doing the same kind of work. 1988, you see, this is kind of way back stuff. And so I wrote the dean, and I said, I really think you ought to put this word in the conversation somewhere. And well, now they do. I mean, I never got a letter back saying, hey, thanks for the suggestion, and I won't. But sometimes that's, to me, I'm with you. It's really frustrating, isn't it? To know this shit, and you tell somebody and they go, really? And they still don't believe you.
Yeah.
And the amount of time, like I have two, I'll call them my non-biological daughters. I've known them since they were born, and they both became doctors, really intelligent young ladies. And I remember one day one of them called me up. She was all excited. She's like, you'll never guess what I learned about in school today. I said, what? And she said, the endocannabinoid system. And I was like, glory, hallelujah. Medical system, you know, they're going to start learning. So I said, well, what did you learn? And she said, really nothing. We spent 30 minutes on it.
Yeah. My daughter told me the same thing.
At least we're getting there, but there's still the first time I educated a room full of doctors, I'm going to tell you how like imposter syndrome that I felt walking into that room.
I bet.
I was asked by a group who specializes in severe childhood behavioral disorders, and just these doctors have patients with major issues. So I went in to give them an education session, and I started off with my normal presentation, like 101, and talked about the cannabis plant, and then got into, okay, well, why and how does it react with our bodies? And I said, well, I won't go into detail about the endocannabinoid system because I'm sitting in a room full of doctors, and surely you know that we have an endocannabinoid system. And they all just were like, well, what? We never heard of it. And so I had to give them that 101 basic education. It's kind of mind-blowing that someone like me who doesn't have a medical background is educating these, you know, professionals that go to school for over a decade, and they're not, you know, they have no idea what it is.
Well, and I agree with that. I agree with that, because there's been times when I've gone to see a doctor, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a little outspoken. So when I ask the doctor if he's aware of medical cannabis, but he tries to give me some kind of prescription, and they say no, my first response right after that is, well, if you don't know about medical cannabis, then you're not intelligent enough to be my practitioner, and I got to go find somebody else who can take care of me because you're a dumbass.
Well, to get to Shawna's point, which again I have great empathy with, we're going to interview a Dr. David Allen here in a week or two. And David first contacted me, I think it was in about the time you stopped in here, but I think it was around 2010 or 2012. We were having a conference in Arizona. He called me up. I never heard of the guy before in my life. And he said, you got this conference, and I got some data here. You just got to let me present. What? Here's what he said, and here's what he presented. I said, sure, come on in. We need to know this. This was, I guess it was 2012. Okay, this is 2025, so not long ago. He says he had taken upon himself. He was a professor at some medical school. So he got his seniors or his grad students or something to call every single medical school in the United States. I believe at the time there were 157 of them. And he asked he had them ask whoever answered the phone, whoever they got to, if they had courses for doctors on medical cannabis use, therapeutic use, or the endocannabinoid system. The answer was no. There was not one single medical school in the United States in, I'm going to say again, 2012, that had a course in either one of those subject matters. Now, in 2025, there's about half and half.
Mhm.
The nursing community is much far advanced. They're more in the 80 something. If you go to nursing school here, you're going to hear this stuff. And don't give up on pharmacy. The pharmacy schools in the United States, the University of Vermont's pharmacy school was the second school in the country for those kind of professionals, the doctors, nurses, to put in a course. So they're into it. They understand how they need to know, and they're needing to know. But again, to just emphasize Shawna's point, the educational level is terrible. And what Casper just said, if you're here in 2025 and you don't know anything about cannabis, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, aren't you paying attention? How many
Exactly.
people,
Prohibitionist, though.
well,
All right, now.
Anyway, Shawna,
Well,
tell us
anyway.
more stories. Tell us
Actually, I have a question.
we've hit the 1 hour mark, and it's time to roll it out so we don't lose our audience before we lose ourselves.
I've got something that we haven't covered yet that I mentioned
All
in
right,
the
all
intro.
right.
But not only
all right.
I mentioned that Shawna is an educator and all that stuff in the cannabis end, but I also mentioned she was a hemp enthusiast, and
Okay.
she works with her house. Tell us about your house.
Yeah, so I love cannabis so much that I decided to build my house out of it. Is what it comes from. A few years ago, there was during the pandemic, there was a big surge of our population exploded by 25% in the first 2 weeks of lockdown. And so things started to get a little tight in my tiny little town. And my husband and I decided that we needed to find our little piece of peaceful pie. So we moved we only moved last year, but we bought our property in 2020. We bought a nice little 11 acres, and I started researching because I felt that here we had an opportunity. We were building from scratch. So I have the opportunity to make some well-informed decisions for my family's health and for the sustainability of my buildings. And so I researched like all sorts of natural buildings, straw bale, rammed earth, cob, this, that, the other thing. But when I came across hempcrete, I was like, wouldn't that be cool if I could build my house out of cannabis? And the more I researched it, the more I realized that it was really the best option. You know, it's fireproof. My walls filter my air. You know, it's pretty much bug and rodent proof. It manages moisture, so I don't need vapor barriers. I don't need an air exchanger. It's just a really awesome product. And because of the lime component and the fact that, you know, the hemp herd itself continues to sequester and draw in carbon, the lime actually recarbonizes over years. And so my walls become stronger as they age. So I'm not leaving a house that's going to crumble to my kids. You know, if you look at the way the average house is built to code right now in Canada, it has a 40-year lifespan before it starts to fall apart. And I can guarantee you that the first issue you're going to have is a moisture issue. So, but my house in 200 years from now is going to be stronger than it is now, and it manages moisture. It's not, you know, trying to keep it out. So, we're still working on it. I still have a lot of work to do. It looks pretty in the background, but
did you find it affordable?
Yeah, comparatively speaking, it material-wise, it's like any other. It's an insulation, right? It's not used structurally. So, you know, financially speaking, as far as materials go. The drawback is the labor. So there are companies that are making hemp blocks. That's really interesting for people because you can build a house very quickly. The way we build is cast on site. So our studs are buried in the middle of the wall. And then I put my formwork on either side with spacers, and I load my hemp in. I tamp it down. I can send you a little video of it, and you go like round and round the house. You move the formwork up as you go. It's very, very labor intensive. So if you're paying somebody else to build your house, you might, in the long run, it might be slightly more expensive to go with hempcrete, but my husband and I built ourselves. So we had, I had a few laborers. I had my kids' friends that came and helped on the hempcrete. I had a girlfriend who came and helped me with, like, I don't know, we'd come up on the weekends with our chainsaws and cut trees down and stuff like that before we started building. And
where'd you get it? Where'd you get the hemp
That's
tree?
what I was, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of my biggest issues, and that's why I've become such an enthusiast of, sustainable building practices. The supply chain sucks. Like,
Imagine.
it's terrible. So the first year we built our garage, and I had to get my hemp from France. It came in from France. Yeah. And if you can imagine, the carbon footprint, because it comes across via boat, is less than it would have been had I shipped in from out west or something. But when I was ready to build my house, I was like, there's no way. My hemp has to come at least from Canada. I tried to work with Danica Dunseth, who is a hemp farmer in Ontario. She's a young woman. I so wanted to support a female hemp farmer and buy her herb from her, but it just logistically, we couldn't get it working. But thankfully, I was able to order my hemp herd from, I think it was Rocky Mountain Hemp out west. So at least it's Canadian hemp that's in my walls in the house, not from France. And I am working, advocating for the idea of a recycling program, because currently we have over 1,000 licensed producers in Canada, and Health Canada requires them to dispose of their biomass in black plastic garbage bags, which go to the dump.
What?
Well, I can tell you, I understand why it is important to get your supplies from Canada instead of France, of all places, because right now they're jumping up and down and screaming about us returning a statue they gave us 200 years ago. I can see them coming back and taking your house. Oh my God! So no, seriously. So now is the hemp building industry growing there in Canada, or are you like one of 2 houses or one of 5 houses built of hemp?
It's definitely growing. There are 2 hempcrete builders here in Quebec that have been doing it for a while. One of them got his training in France, but he's been building here in Quebec hempcrete buildings for over, I think he's 23 or 24 years. So they're around. There are hempcrete houses around, but you don't really see them. You don't really hear about them. I think it's starting to gain popularity, but in order for that to happen, it needs to be more accessible. And presently, it's like I was supposed to this summer, I got asked to consult and help get 2 other builders started off on their hempcrete homes. So I was going to go in and train them how to do the hempcrete, get them started off, and they just pulled the plugs on their projects because of supply issues. They're having to bring it from across the country, and the shipping is extremely expensive. So,
do you know Andrea Herman?
Oh,
the name sounds familiar. I'm terrible.
Oh, jeepers, you should, because she's a pioneer in the hemp community, the cannabis community. She helped pioneer hemp building industry there in your soon to be state, and she helped to establish a couple of companies as well that pioneered building homes out of hemp.
Is she not in the Midwest? I think she comes into Manitoba, and from what I can remember from years ago, back in the 2015 or so, when she was she had a show on Time for Hemp, did she not?
Yes, she did. Yes, that's how I learned about. She's a bright mind, a very caring individual, got a charming personality, a great sense of humor. If you get a chance to interact with her, she's very knowledgeable, and it'll probably be a real benefit to your community.
Yeah, I will reach out for sure. Thank you for mentioning her. It's, again, I truly believe that we need to come together in order to improve whatever, whether it's cannabis education or supply chain issues with, hemp materials. Coming together is our best way to overcome those.
And I agree with it. When you do reach out, tell her I said HIGH, bitches. We got to wrap it up now so we don't lose our audience. We want them to tune in every week to know how important it is to take time for hemp. Let's do a round robin of hello and goodbye.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to meet you guys, and I will be tuning in for sure.
Tell them your website.
My website, EducaNation at.
Spell it, because you all talk funny up there in Canada. We don't know your language.
EduCanNation.info.
Do that again, because we Americans, we have problems with the foreign language. Go ahead.
EducaNation.info. EduCanNation.info.
And it has been charming to have you as a guest today. I really enjoyed making a new friend with you. And I hope we get a chance to meet face to face and you come back as a guest sometime soon. I've fallen in love with you and your work. Seriously.
Anytime. Thank you so much. I really
absolutely. And Al Graham, why don't you let the whole world know about Pace Radio Network?
Yep. People advocating cannabis education, paceradio.net. As I mentioned earlier, we touch on cannabis as well as psychedelic programming. So check us out. We're on YouTube, Facebook, social medias, right?
And Al Byrne, one more time about that groovy little book that you put out.
Oh, you're on mute.
Al Byrne, you're on mute.
That's all right. I'm told the girls just tune in just to look at me anyway. They don't really dig my voice. But for country and cannabis. Also, another website for veterans out there. You might look up Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access. Sort of explains a little bit about the plight of veterans in the United States with cannabis. Not nearly as healthy as the Canadian brothers and sisters out there. But Shawna, my personal thank you for coming. I love what you're doing. I'm with Casper. I think you got what we would call on the male balls. You're out there, and you're right, and you've proved that by your success. And I've said it before, but if I can help you somehow, I'm down here, you're up there. Who cares about a U.S. citizen right now in Canada? I imagine we're probably not considered really. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Canada, but
we're going to be fellow citizens, so that's all right.
Yeah, it'll work out. It's always going to work out. I served in my time briefly with Canadian soldiers. I was a sailor. And we got along great, and I can't imagine we wouldn't get along great just tonight or tomorrow as well. It wouldn't matter much. But again, thank you for coming. I hope we can bring you on again. And if we do so, I think we maybe want to concentrate more on the hemp side of this issue. It needs more discussion. You were the first one I've ever met in my life that has a home made out of this. I think there's a lot of people that would have a lot of questions, and maybe we can bring you back and you can talk hemp for us. Bring your husband too. I mean, he's a hempster, right? Yeah?
Actually, he isn't. I took care of all the hemp.
Well, leave him home, man. Leave him somewhere.
And everything. I take care of the hemp. Yeah.
Well, we're glad your son is doing well too. That's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
thanks again, guys.
And
Anytime I can talk all night. So
And I want to remind people that education is the key. That is why we do. We have fun, and we got a lot of laughs throughout the show, but we try to get information that is of value to you and your community. That's also why when you go to timeforhemp.news, that's the number 4 hemp.news, we ask that you check out our archives, because we've been doing this for quite a while. And we got an archive full of knowledge from a lot of impressive professionals, doctors, lawyers, scientists, researchers, who have focused on the benefits of this plant and have a lot to share. And we've kept their voices alive on our website. Also note that everything on our website is free to download. And so if you find a program that you think is a benefit to your community, or to a politician who's actively working on a bill in your area that might be a benefit of the medical community in cannabis, you can send them that information, and it doesn't cost you anything. We've also got a new addition to the timeforhemp.news website, and that is the Illusions of Music. They've become the permanent in-house band, and they've got right now about 26 songs that you can download, all free, about how wonderful cannabis is. And we ask, if you like them, to share them with your friends. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. If you've already subscribed, please hit the like button, because any interaction with our videos helps our algorithms, which means other people can find this information and learn how important it really is to take time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, time for help! Yeah.
Time for Hemp is a Pace Radio Network content provider.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.